Among all the recent updates, one thing really caught my eye. An image of a very familiar room. If you take a closer look, you can spot photos of several experiments on the wall. Some of them we already know a lot about, while others are completely new to us. Looking closely, we can clearly see our old friend Huggy, who, without a doubt, will be making an appearance in Chapter 5. From the Smiling Critters lineup, we've got the well-known CatNap and DogDay, as well as the lesser-known Bubba fan. Now, while we'll discuss the chances of the first two returning later, I have no idea why the devs included Bubba here. Even if we consider his voice line from Chapter 3,
"Remember about you?"
it's obvious that this character is 100% dead. We can also spot PJ Pugapillar, who first appeared in Chapter 2. Honestly, I wouldn't bet on her coming back, and most likely, just like Bubba fan, this is nothing more than a fun Easter egg for fans. The same goes for the legendary Killy Willy, who is purely a fan-made character. He's not canon and definitely won't be in Chapter 5, no matter how much people want him to be. This way, the devs simply showed their respect for Poppy Playtime fans. Now, only two characters remain in this image, Daisy and an unknown monster. Let's start with Daisy, who is essentially a rejected toy that made kids scared and cry. Despite originally being planned as an antagonist, the exact reasons for her removal are still unknown. There's actually a solid chance that Daisy could appear in Chapter 5 as a mini-game character or a short-term side character, kind of like Pianosaurus. One major reason for this is that she has way too many fans, and adding her as a symbolic character would be a great move. Now, the most mysterious figure in this lineup is the one we've never seen before. All we know about him is that he's pretty big and blue. At first glance, you might think it's Doughy, the character everyone instantly fell in love with after Chapter 4's release. However, there are a few inconsistencies that suggest otherwise. First off, we can clearly see that this character has pink hands or gloves and a solid colored body, which completely rules out any connection to our beloved Doughy. Also, maybe it's just me, but it kind of looks like this character has a pair of small horns or something, while Doughy only has his perfectly fitting hat. Now, if we go back to one of the leaks that was originally tied to Chapter 4, the encrypted clown, who Doughy definitely isn't, and judging by the size of this new character's body, we can assume that this mysterious clown might actually turn out to be one of the new antagonists in Chapter 5. Among the long-forgotten characters left behind by the devs, there's one monster that fans have always found super interesting: Brawn, the dinosaur. He even has a full recording of his experiment. But as former Mob Entertainment employee Isaac once said, the devs kept trying to add him to the game, yet something always went wrong. And here's the key thing to understand. They weren't just trying to add Brawn, they wanted to bring in his full-scale version. And now, knowing what we do, that legendary DogDay scene we got might not have even existed in the first place.
No! Leave me! Please! Just go! Run! Run!
Originally, Brawn was supposed to take that spot, but over time, it's become clear that the devs, even after all these years, still haven't figured out the perfect way to add him to the game. But don't worry, like I've told you many times before, Chapter 5 is most likely the final chapter, which means there's a good chance we'll see Brawn in some kind of mini version. Aside from these characters, we also have Cat Bee and Candy Cat, but seeing their full-scale versions is nothing more than a dream at this point, so I don't really see the point in discussing them. Instead, let's talk about the ones who might actually return soon as full-fledged, massive monsters. Now, we can finally say with confidence, Chapter 5 has to conclude the story of Poppy Playtime, which means it's time to talk about who we might see again. I don't think anyone will be shocked if I say Huggy Wuggy. Alright. We'll get to Huggy and his potentially major role later. But for now, let's talk about everyone else. Drop your own ratings for how likely each character is to return in the comments. But keep in mind, this is the final chapter, and everything will revolve around the prototype. The first so-called victim of the prototype, none other than Mommy Longlegs.
What have you done? You make me part of him! You can't do this to me!
What stood out to me the most were her words about not wanting to be a part of him. Judging by what's left of Mommy, it would be foolish to claim she'll return in Chapter 5 in the classic form we're used to seeing her. But let's not forget that Playtime's labs are home to mind-bending technologies. And now that the prototype is in charge, all their developments are literally in his head. That means, while it's small, there's still a chance that Mommy Longlegs might come back. She could appear as Mommy 2.0 or more likely as part of the prototype's body. But as the original Mommy Longlegs, we definitely won't see her in that form. Still, I'd love to see that pink beauty again. Aside from Mommy, there's another missing piece in the prototype's puzzle, CatNap, the circumstances of his death or maybe his survival, which still haunt me to this day. Take note of how this so-called incident unfolded. At first glance, it seems like the prototype's claw pierced CatNap's head completely. And it looks pretty obvious, but this is mob entertainment we're talking about. They're capable of anything, as we saw with Huggy. But take a closer look. Now, once more, the prototype's claw hits precisely the center of CatNap's mouth. And despite the blood, you can clearly see that no vital organ, specifically the brain or the arteries carrying blood from the neck, has been damaged. This makes it quite possible that CatNap survived, and as a result, his return in Chapter 5 is very likely. I know this might sound crazy, but you remember we're dealing with the prototype and his labs. And if we're talking about CatNap, we can't ignore his complete opposite, DogDay. This guy was one of the most intriguing characters in Chapter 3, and thanks to him, we learned a lot of new things.
Come to save us. Nothing left to save. Not here. Nor at CatNap's home, Angel. Their home. A million pairs of eyes are on you now. Watching, waiting, hungry. They want nothing more than to crawl beneath your skin and eat away at you bit by little bit. Fill what feels empty inside themselves. That thing, CatNap. The prototype is his god, and this is what he does to heretics. We try to fight it. The prototype's control. I am the last of the smiling critters.
I think everyone felt a little something in their heart at this moment. But if we put emotions aside and think logically, DogDay is alive. His body was simply taken over by the mini critters. And if we remember the final scene with him, I didn't notice anything that suggested a fatal outcome for him. We easily escaped from him and shut the door right in his face, interrupting his chase. But he's still alive, and you probably can't argue with that. Unlike Miss Delight, who definitely won't be coming back, at least because we split her body into 2 parts. And honestly, she isn't important to the prototype like Mommy Longlegs for him to waste time and energy resurrecting her. I'm pretty sure we'll encounter DogDay again as an episodic monster trying to catch us, but we know that this time he'll probably meet the same fate as Miss Delight. And since we're talking about smiling critters, it would be a crime not to mention Hoppy Hopscotch, who first appeared to us in Chapter 3.
On 3 with me. 1, 2, 3! Heh, didn't get very far, did we? Again! 1, 2, 3! Nope. Still didn't make it. Listen, this won't stop until we make it to the moon. 1, 2... No! Don't look at your feet! None of that matters! Again! Again! Jump! Jump!
Hey, what really got me hooked was that we don't hear any screams like we do with Bubba or Kickin'. But the devs decided to spice things up and keep us intrigued by showing a little snippet of her life in Safe Haven.
I need some help here! Hey, watch the door! Watch the door!
Right here.
There you go, bud. You're okay. Okay! Look at me! I'm a mess!
Hoppy? What's going on?
We were trying to bring supplies back up to the elevator, but we got jumped. Had to turn all the way back around. So, what do we do now?
For starters, you two stay here tonight. Let things settle down outside. I'll find more food for you to bring up to play care. When you're ready.
Thanks, Joey. Sorry we lost the supplies. It won't happen again.
And it seems like nothing, just a small reference to an old character, and I'd agree with you if it wasn't for that damn note on the wall, where we find out that Hoppy disappeared and they can't find her. That's the real reason she's not in Safe Haven, and what's really interesting is that we haven't seen any solid proof of her death. So these references make you think that she might be, let's say, captured by the prototype in those very labs, and the chances of meeting her in Chapter 5 are pretty high. You can't just assume she was killed by CatNap or anyone else, cause no one, except the devs, knows for sure. And if you're curious whether any other smiling critters have a chance of coming back, after you're done with this video, check this one out, because I dive deep into all the fates of the smiling critters and their chances of returning with all the latest info. As for Chapter 4, honestly, I don't even want to talk about it. Yarnaby is a real idiot, and there's no point in expecting his return. Sawyer already did his part of the deal with the prototype, and honestly, all he probably wanted was to die, which we helped him with. Nightmare critters are just a joke that shouldn't have even existed in the first place, but then there's Pianosaurus. This 30 Seconds hero also wasn't even supposed to show up in Chapter 4, and devs just threw him in as a filler for the gameplay. But lately, a lot of fans have been pushing this theory that there are actually multiple Pianosauruses, and in Chapter 5, we might either see a second one, or, if you believe the whole musical band theory, maybe another member of his group. To me, that sounds like total nonsense, and I don't even want to waste time on it. But hey, let me know what you think in the comments. And if anyone's worried about Kissy Missy, don't be. She's definitely coming back, just like Poppy. But Huggy's return is what's really interesting. Not only is it super symbolic, since everything started with him, it makes sense for everything to end with him, but his role in our survival might actually be huge. So before I wrap this up, let me quickly drop a theory, and if you've got your own takes, hit up the comments. Huggy's gonna be a neutral character whose only goal is survival. He won't fight for our side, even though he's got a close bond with Kissy Missy, and he won't be on the prototype side, even though he started off as its pawn. His appearance is gonna be the key to progressing through the game. Think about it. Poppy escaped, Kissy's badly injured, and if we take into account what Leith Pierre said about the lab, there's no way we survive in there without a third party helping us. So maybe Huggy's gonna be that third party and help us make it to the prototype alive. As I promised, let's finally unravel the mystery of the new character. Y'all remember those weird hats they kept teasing us with before the release of Chapter 4, right? At the time, no one knew what they meant, but later we found out they were tied to Doey. But here's the thing. There was another leak showing the silhouette of a clown. And let's be real, Doey ain't no clown. So who exactly were the devs teasing us with? For a while, fan-made channels were hyping up a character called Lulu the Clown. Now, I'm not saying it's gonna be exactly him, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Chapter 5 character shares some similarities. Lately, I've seen way too many theories about the real Ollie showing up in Chapter 5. That really caught my attention, so I decided to dig in and see just how likely that actually is. Throughout Chapter 3, Ollie was one of the most important characters for us. His tips and hints made surviving a whole lot easier.
Well, head back out, and you should find a door just to the left of the cable car you took down here. Okay, I sent you another key. It's under the statue. Use it to get into Home Sweet Home. Then once you're inside, find the building's backup generator. Good luck!
But despite all the theories and mysteries surrounding this character, ones that popped up right after Chapter 3 dropped, opinions were divided. Some were dead sure Ollie was actually the prototype, while others swore he was a real person, just like us, trying to escape Playtime Co. But then Chapter 4 hit us with the brutal truth, one that completely flipped the story on its head.
What did you do with Ollie?
I'm right here, Poppy.
For you.
I'll always be here.
Right now, we know that Ollie is the prototype, but that raises an even bigger question. What the hell really happened to the real Ollie? Is he still alive? And who actually is he? I've got two possible theories where Ollie survived and is still somewhere inside Playtime Co. First, let's break down the theory that directly ties him to the prototype and Dr. Sawyer. We already know the prototype has a freakishly good ability to mimic voices. Hell, we saw it firsthand during our first encounter with Harley Sawyer.
Log code 24459. In relation, experiment 1006. The prototype. Stubborn as he is, and always silent with each passing session, I'm still uncovering fresh data nonetheless. Today's discovery.
Ready to talk now, are you? I possess
A question.
Go ahead.
Do you feel anything?
This question referred to what exactly?
You stick us.
Beat us.
Tear at flesh.
Do you feel it? There's a secret inside you, 1006. Valuable beyond all measure.
Even this theory isn't as simple as it seems. Yeah, the prototype is a genius-level monster with insane intelligence and all sorts of unnatural abilities, but his voice mimicry? That comes with a catch. For the prototype to steal someone's voice, he has to be around them for a long time. Meaning, if he really was the one on the other end of the phone the whole time, then he definitely knew Ollie and spent a lot of time with him. A perfect example? Theodore. This kid eventually became CatNap, one of the prototype's servants. But before that, he saw the prototype every single day, talked to him, interacted with him. This just proves again that the prototype is a master manipulator. He knows exactly how to win people over before using them for his own plans. And we can't forget about the Poppy doll itself. Created from the remains of multiple children through the Bigger Bodies initiative, which also involved using human parts in experiments. We're not gonna dive into the whole theory that Elliot Ludwig is the prototype and that he's just trying to take care of his daughter Poppy, who's now a doll made from his daughter's remains and all that, cause honestly, that doesn't really matter for today's discussion. What does make sense, though, is the theory that Ollie was one of Sawyer's victims in the Bigger Bodies initiative. We know for a fact that the prototype and Ollie talked for a long time. But now, the prototype is saying that Ollie was around a very, very long time ago. Meaning, the prototype might have taken Ollie's voice for his own purposes, then threw him into an experiment. If that's true, there's a real chance we'll run into Ollie in Chapter 5, but as a bigger bodies experiment. And that's where things get really interesting. This theory actually makes a lot of sense when you look at what happened at the end of Chapter 4. We lost everyone who could have helped us. Doughy? Dead by our own hands. Poppy? Freaked out and ran away. Kissy? At best, she lost an arm, and at worst, she didn't make it. Either way, she's in no condition to help us. So, if there was ever a perfect time to run into the real Ollie as a bigger bodies experiment, it's now. And if we want to prove that it was actually the prototype on the phone this whole time, we just got to listen to one of the VHS tapes.
Poppy? Are you there?
Yes. Yes, I'm here.
When you didn't answer, are you feeling okay?
I'm okay. Really.
Did the bad men hurt you?
There's nothing more they can do to hurt me. Nothing more than what they've already done.
Something's bothering you, Poppy. Something you need to talk about?
I don't need anything tonight. Ollie, I just want to sleep.
I think there's more to this. More that you're not telling me.
There's not.
I know what you're doing, Poppy. Talking like that. Don't think for a second that I believe it. Just tell me what you're feeling. Please, just talk to me honestly.
We hear how curious Ollie is, how he's desperate to learn more. And honestly, it almost feels like this whole conversation was never about helping us. It was just the prototype fishing for as much info on Poppy as possible. But here's the thing. There are a few inconsistencies in this theory that make me think we might have actually been talking to the real Ollie all along. First off, listen to this.
It's me again. It seems like Poppy explained everything now, and she turned on the dome's backup power. Now the plan from here is pretty simple. Turn on the generator, leave, and plug the school's power cord into the center. Be careful in there. I don't think I can connect to you on that side of the dome.
Now compare it to how the prototype mimics voices.
You don't need to pretend anymore.
You don't need to play at being stronger than you are.
You can come home.
How much do you know?
Everything. Let me tell you what comes next.
I'm going to come up there, and I'm going to find you.
Your collaborators, the few you have left, they will be dealt with.
Yeah, maybe this is a bit of a reach, but hear me out. Ollie's voice just feels too structured, too clear, compared to how the prototype usually talks. And based on that, plus something else we'll get into in a second, I really think we might have been talking to the real Ollie this whole time. The only question is, what was his endgame? In previous part of the video, we already figured out that the prototype spent a lot of time talking to Ollie. And if we draw a parallel with CatNap, who, let's not forget, used to be an orphan before the prototype finally got in his head and turned him into what he is now, then it's totally possible the same thing happened to Ollie. And considering his kid-like voice, we know Ollie wasn't some Playtime co-employee. There's like a 99% chance he was one of the orphans living at the dormitory. So the idea that the prototype manipulated him into taking his side, yeah, that's not a stretch at all. And if that wasn't enough, there's actually something Poppy said during our convo that strongly hints Ollie might still be alive.
The orphans weren't killed during the Hour of Joey. They were taken. They're below, in the labs. The prototype's home. They are alive, but sleeping. They're with him. And he knows we're here. So, if we're going to free them and stop the prototype, we need to plan for both at the same time. The red smoke he redirected from Playcare? It's an accelerant. All it needs is high pressure and a little spark, and it ignites. The plan is this. We'll fill the foundation with smoke and line it with old mining charges. Then once you, me, and Kissy have freed the orphans, our friends here will blow this place sky high.
Yo, if you really think about it, during the Hour of Joy, which kicked off all the horror at Playtime, only the staff got taken out, while all the orphans stayed alive. Well, at least we never saw the risen monsters mess with any kids. So yeah, Poppy might be right after all. Ollie could be chilling in the prototype's lab, just in deep sleep. Makes you think back to Chapter 3, where we first met Ollie, right? So, we've looked at a few theories, and in any of them, Ollie's alive. Either he's now part of the BB experiment, or he's working for the prototype, and all these mind games are just a big illusion of friendship for the prototype's benefit. Or maybe Ollie's just knocked out cold, and the prototype straight up stole his voice and learned to mimic it perfectly. I want to know which theory you guys are leaning towards. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Of course, we can't rule out that Ollie might be dead by now, and the prototype's just using his voice. But we haven't heard anything confirming that. We just know Ollie was there a long time ago, but nothing's been said about him being dead, so I'm not buying that theory. Either way, I can say with a lot of confidence that we're definitely gonna see, or at the very least hear, the real Ollie in Chapter 5. And the fact that we've already lost so many allies only makes me more sure of it. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you soon!